Okay, I am joined by Dr. Mike Brennan, Director of the National Hurricane Center. Hello, Mike.
Good to see you.
We are a couple of months away from hurricane season 2025. When you look
Yeah.
out at any early season guidance, what's going on with sea surface temperatures, upper level winds, El Nino, La Nina, what do you think are going to be your biggest forecast challenges going into this year's season?
Well, I think they're going to be pretty similar to what we faced over the previous few years. I mean, I think when I think about the things I'm most concerned about, it's these storms that tend to develop in the western part of the basin, in the Gulf and the Caribbean, and can rapidly strengthen and make landfall within 3 or 4 days, these sort of short fuse hurricane emergency events. And, going back to 2017, we've had 25 hurricane landfalls in the United States. The vast majority of them have been along the Gulf Coast. So we've seen these areas be affected over and over again. And we've sort of seen this play out. Storms like Laura, storms like Helene, Milton last year, Beryl, again, didn't rapidly intensify to a major hurricane before it got to Southeast Texas, but was quickly strengthening after moving all the way across the Caribbean and into the Gulf. So I think, again, just those short fuse events, systems that form close to home, are some of our bigger challenges because they can change very quickly, and we need people to put those hurricane action plans in place on very short notice at times.
Well, last year, we saw this incredible amount of activity
Yeah.
to the west of 60 degrees west longitude, which made the Gulf of Mexico almost hyperactive. It Perhaps this is going to be something we see again this season, which would make it more likely that the Gulf would be active and get hit again.
Yeah, the challenge in the western part of the basin is conditions are basically favorable for tropical storms and hurricanes to develop all hurricane season long. In the eastern part of the basin, you really have that kind of window from August into late September, where usually the waters are warm enough for storms to form out here. But when you have the storms form close by, there's less chance for them to escape without making landfall somewhere. You get something forming in the Gulf, it's going to hit land somewhere. Storms that form out farther east in the Atlantic have some chance to recurve and avoid direct land impacts in some locations. But you're right, as we get into situations where we tend to see more development in the western part of the basin, that's always a big concern. We certainly can have impacts from long track storms. In the Southeast Texas, you think Ike back in 2008 was one of those that came all the way across the basin. But again, we don't exactly know where the storms are going to form every year. You think back to last year, we had that big pause in the Atlantic hurricane activity in August and September, and everybody was like, well, what's going to happen? Are we not going to have any storms? And things turned on very quickly as we got into late September with Helene, and then we had Milton, and we had other storms, and we had a lot of activity in September, late September, October, even into November in the western part of the basin. So it's just a reminder, people have to be ready all season long.
Computer modeling. You guys have had some great success over the past couple of decades, even over the past couple of years, especially with your own models, HAVs and
Yeah.
HWRF getting improvements and forecast track, the cone getting tighter. Now we've got AI playing into these
Yep.
models as well. How is that being integrated? How is that helping you guys make an even better forecast?
Yeah, we're starting to pull in some of the AI model guidance that's being produced by places like ECMWF and other modeling centers. We're starting to evaluate guidance or model forecasts from those models over previous years. We're going to start evaluating them this season, see how we can add them into the mix. They're not going to replace the traditional modeling that we use, but they could be used to supplement it. And I think the initial impression on the AI model guidance is that it's quite good for forecasting track, which makes sense. Most of those models are trained on sort of very large scale atmospheric analyses, and that's really what controls track, is the large scale. The AI guidance hasn't been as good for intensity, which makes sense because that's very small scale, what's going on in the eye wall, how the hurricane's interacting between the atmosphere and the ocean. But I think there'll probably be some progress on those fronts as well. So we're using that on the modeling side, but then there's also other AI techniques that are looking at things like satellite intensity estimates and helping us on the analysis side that we're starting to evaluate as well.
Houston is uniquely vulnerable, Houston, Galveston, to
Yeah.
hurricanes. We are mission critical to the well-being and economic well-being of the United States with our petrochemical industry. We're the
Yeah.
industry capital of the United States. The port of Houston, not to forget our medical center as well. There are proposed budget cuts to NOAA. I'm just looking at that, their proposals. I'm concerned because forecasting is so mission critical to
Yeah.
Houston, Galveston, and the nation. I know you're looking at these proposals. I just feel like we just can't have any letdown in our forecasting ability.
Yeah, we're still going to be here at the Hurricane Center doing what we do every year and working with you in the media, the emergency management community to make sure that those life-saving forecasts get out, not just, as you mentioned, for life safety, but also the huge economic impact that Southeast Texas, the entire Gulf Coast region has. And I think there's a recognition of the importance of the hurricane mission, what we do, not just here at NHC, but also the data and the research that goes into improving those forecasts short-term and long-term. So we're going to continue doing what we do here.
We are vulnerable.
Yes.
Can you, what would you tell people going into this year's hurricane season? We're 2 months out. We've got time right now to prepare. Your message to Houston, Galveston, as we head into hurricane season 2025.
Yeah, it's always about knowing your risk. And, you've got people in the Houston, Galveston area that have been there their whole lives, but you also have people who are moving in and out of that area, people who are new, who may not really understand what that risk is. So if you're new to the area, the biggest thing is consider what the threats are in your location. Storm surge is obviously a huge risk. Galveston, the Bolivar Peninsula up into Galveston Bay. That's the risk that really drives evacuation decisions. So you want to know if you live in one of those storm surge evacuation zones, you may be asked to leave by your local officials there. Know that evacuation plan ahead of time, know where you're going to go, how you're going to get there, and try to make evacuation achievable. You don't have to drive 200 miles to get to a safe place. Many times you might only have to drive 10 or 20 miles to get to a shelter, to a safe home of a friend or loved one where you can ride out the storm. And then again, determine if you live in a flood-prone area from heavy rainfall. We all remember the impacts that Harvey had across Southeast Texas, catastrophic rainfall flooding separate from the storm surge risk. So that's a huge risk as well. That's where we've lost more people than any other hazard in the United States and tropical storms and hurricanes over the last 10 years or so is from that freshwater flooding. And then just remember, you want to have that evacuation plan and that emergency supply kit in place before you get to hurricane season. You don't want to have to rush to put it together if we're going to have a rapidly intensifying storm that develops in the Gulf and then threatens Southeast Texas in 2 or 3 days. You want to have all this in place so you can put it into action very quickly.
You mentioned, again, rapidly intensifying storms, 2 to 3 days, sometimes not even that. I think really that's something that especially folks who are new to our area need to understand, that you may not get a huge amount of lead time to prepare.
Yeah, not every hurricane is going to be like Ike, where you watch it come all the way across the Atlantic and into the Caribbean and into the Gulf over like a week. Sometimes we do get storms like that you have a lot of time to watch and get ready for. But other times you have storms that develop much more quickly, like we saw with Helene last year that made landfall in the Florida Big Bend region, went from basically nothing to a Category 4 hurricane in 3 or 4 days. So again, the good news is that our ability to anticipate that and make those more aggressive forecasts of these developing systems is a lot better now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. But it still doesn't necessarily mean that you have more time. You still have to get things done, get ready for the storm in a finite amount of time once you know what the risk is for your area.
To urge my viewers to do in hurricane season is just, regardless of whether there's anything out there or not, watch the weather. Yeah. At least once a day. Just turn us on for the weather once a day. In the morning and the evening is best, so if anything is brewing, you've got the latest update.
Yeah, that's right. We have a tropical weather outlook that comes out 4 times a day that gives you an idea of where systems could form going all the way out over the next 7 days. So again, if you check that once a day, make that part of your routine, you're going to know very quickly if there's at least a potential for something to form near where you live or somewhere else in the basin that might eventually affect you. So again, it's part of that just general awareness, preparedness, taking the responsibility to be storm aware where you are.
Make it part of your routine. That is, that's perfect. That's the best advice I think you and I can give folks in Houston, Galveston. Dr. Mike Brennan, Director of the National Hurricane Center, thank you for your time. Let's hope for a quiet season this year. What do you say?
That would be great, but we got to be ready for anything. So thanks, David.
Thanks, Doctor.